나는 나로 저에게 심지어 담지기 산지고 본 토발라는 자주 심 냠는.
Good evening. So we're looking at this text which presents the technique to develop bodhicitta, which is indispensable to cultivate in order so that we can train our minds to the point of perfection, where we can become Buddhas, attain the ground of no more training, so that we can be of greatest benefit to others and lead them to their own enlightenment. So our text is now presenting how to develop bodhicitta. And last week we looked at how in this world ourselves and all other samsaric beings experience so much suffering, whether it's on the physical level, that of physical pain, and certainly that on the mental level of mental pain. All this illness and suffering that beings experience coming from its root cause of ignorance, and ignorance that obscures us, leaving us in a state of darkness, as if we were blind to wisdom. Recognizing the situation we're in, we need to also see how incredibly fortunate we are to have met the Dharma. And having met the Dharma means we now can understand the need to cultivate virtue, what is meant by virtue, and how to cultivate virtue, how to develop minds of virtue. Having met the Dharma, such an opportunity is incredibly rare, as is the wish to, or the aspiration to develop virtue. So we need to nurture this aspiration for virtue by reflecting on how truly fortunate we all are. And by reflecting this way again and again, this aspiration for virtue will grow in us to the point where it overwhelms us and guides us in everything we do. This then is what we looked at in brief last week. Last week then we looked at the need to cultivate virtue, and this week we come to look at the need to abandon non-virtue. And this is now where we come to the very first of the benefits of bodhicitta that is presented in this chapter. And the sixth verse then has these three lines. Non-virtue is of great and overwhelming strength, except for perfect bodhicitta. What other virtue could overcome and surpass it? Last week in the previous verse, it's a 5-line verse, and that the last line there was that virtue is perpetually feeble. So this was referring to our aspiration for virtue is weak, it is feeble. Now in the next verse, the first line is non-virtue is of great and overwhelming strength. So this is to draw the contrast between our aspiration to virtue as on the one hand, but the strength of the non-virtue on our continuum, our habituation to non-virtue on our continuum. So therefore these two lines have a relationship. With the end of the previous verse and the beginning of this verse, we see there that the aspiration for virtue, this comes, but it's infrequent and it's weak. Whereas on the other hand, our non-virtue, we have great habituation to it. It is as a strength that could almost be called, let's think of another way to express this. It has a strength that overwhelms us. It's a strength that is so severe. I'm trying to think of a better way to put this. The word is like violent, violent or fierce. But so let's just stay with overwhelming. The strength of our habituation to non-virtue overwhelms our mind. So the word, because again I was using a word in addition to what we have here, but it's best then expressed as it is here, that it overwhelms us. It brings almost generate fear within us in the way that it overwhelms us. Pay close attention to our mind. When we use mindfulness, we'll see that non-virtue naturally arises within us, spontaneously arises within us. People don't need to instruct us, make us, for example, speak in a harsh manner or twist the truth a little bit. This way, or this non-virtuous way of acting, spontaneously arises within us. So this is the meaning of being overwhelmed by our non-virtue. We are so deeply habituated to it. Our continuum is you could almost be expressed as pervaded by non-virtuous imprints. Hence, they so spontaneously, readily arise within us. Virtue, on the other hand, this all too often feels like we need to intentionally recall the teachings, generate a virtuous outlook. But the non-virtue, this is something that when we pay close attention, we can see the habituation that we have to it. So this is how we come to understand that it is of great strength and overwhelms us, dominates us. The term then that we have as overwhelming, this implies the habituation that we have to non-virtue, that it spontaneously, readily, for the smallest of causes, arises within us. Another way to understand this is to translate the same word as being dreadful or unbearable or terrible. What that then would refer to is a different aspect, the ripening result that comes from the arisal and acting under the influence of non-virtue, the suffering that will follow. So the mere arisal of non-virtue in our mind leads to suffering being experienced immediately. But if we grasp at that non-virtuous way of thinking or act under its influence, we accumulate further causes that can ripen in the lower realms. So here we can perhaps, again, we'll take an illustration from the animal world, but if we watch our own mind, we see how we respond in a way that's similar. So if an animal is threatened, it's attacked, immediately a great fear arises within them, and they will either fight back, or they'll freeze, or run away. When we watch our own mind, we'll see similar responses coming. And this will often be accompanied by fear, an intense fear, feeling that we are attacked, we are in danger, whether our life is being threatened or not. But we will feel as if we are being challenged, that we are being attacked. And from this arisal of afflictions, from non-virtue ripening in our mind, we may well create further causes that can lead to suffering results in this or future lives. Again, this word overwhelming also can be translated as unbearable. Unbearable or intolerable, excruciating. So this has the second meaning. The first, overwhelming, was indicating the habituation to non-virtue. The second, that of being unbearable, intolerable, that indicates the ripening result that can follow from accumulating further non-virtue. So therefore, we need to recognize the need to abandon non-virtue, not only because of the suffering that we will experience now as non-virtue ripens in our continuum, but through the accumulation of further seeds. If we do not purify them now in this life, while we have the opportunity, they may well ripen in propelling us into the lower realms in our next life, where the suffering will be, and here's that same word, overwhelming, unbearable, intolerable. So looking at these two lines together. First, looking at the non-virtue is of great and overwhelming strength. So we understand that because of our habituation to non-virtue since beginningless time, we have a tremendous number of imprints on our continuum, and therefore, due to this habituation, they readily arise within us, and therefore, they are great and overwhelming. And as we accumulate further imprints, as well as what we already have on our continuum, they may well ripen into rebirth in the lower realms, where our suffering will be great and overwhelming. On the other hand, though, with the previous line, the virtue, or our aspiration for virtue, this is feeble. It sometimes comes, but it quickly goes. And if it, whilst arisen, if non-virtue ripens, because of its strength, it will overwhelm our virtuous intent. We need to now recognize this within ourselves. And to the extent we can recognize that, we will want to utilize this opportunity that we have, where we have attained the freedom from being reborn in the lower realms, utilize this opportunity now to purify previously accumulated non-virtue, and be sure to guard our mind so as not to accumulate further causes that will otherwise lead to rebirth in the lower realms. That's on one hand, and accompanying this is to ensure we strengthen our habituation to virtue, our aspiration to virtue. We strengthen this as well as guarding our mind from coming under the influence of non-virtuous imprints. Verse is always written in very condensed form, hence the need for an explanation. So we see in the first line of the verse, non-virtues of great and overwhelming strength. What's implied but not at all stated is that, and therefore, we need to strive to abandon our accumulation of non-virtue. So how to do so? Well, the way to eliminate the very root of all our suffering is to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness. It's that wisdom that is able to purify completely all previously accumulated non-virtue. And whilst that is the case, here in this context, the wisdom realizing emptiness is not the method that is being implied. And look at the second and third line in the verse. Except for perfect bodhicitta, what other virtue could overcome and surpass it? So as I just mentioned, this verse then is not referring to the wisdom realizing emptiness, but is rather making the point, if one cultivates virtue through, whether it's, for example, doing circumambulation or prostrations, or cultivating generosity, ethical restraint, patience, and so forth, if these are done without bodhicitta, they cannot lead to overcoming our non-virtue. Bodhicitta is indispensable. This needs to be cultivated. What's explicitly been said, except for bodhicitta, none of the other forms of the accumulation of merit, such as practices of generosity or circumambulation, they will not lead to overcoming our non-virtue. Again, it's just repeating then the second line, except for perfect bodhicitta. So, no other practices within the accumulation of merit will suffice here. Bodhicitta must be generated in order to overcome non-virtue. Again, whilst it's not explicitly stated, what is implied in the second line is that bodhicitta must be cultivated. How is it then that a bodhicitta can overcome non-virtue that is of great and overwhelming strength? What is so special about bodhicitta amongst all the practices that fall within the accumulation of merit? If bodhicitta is absent, one is engaging virtuous practices for one's own betterment, or perhaps for a group that one cares for, such as one's family and loved ones. Or perhaps one's even got a particularly powerful motivation and doing so for immeasurable beings. But bodhicitta, and bodhicitta alone, has each and every sentient being without exception as its object. Therefore, because of the vastness of this mind of bodhicitta, the strength of the virtue that bodhicitta leads to being accumulated is unparalleled. And therefore, bodhicitta is of extreme power. When bodhicitta is cultivated and one has this motivation to be of benefit to all, for the reason I've just presented, our previous accumulation of misdeeds, these are purified. But moreover, it also prevents us from accumulating further misdeeds. And therefore, not only does bodhicitta serve to overwhelm previously accumulated non-virtue, but it also brings to an end the accumulation of further non-virtue. So this is another reason why bodhicitta is supremely powerful in overcoming non-virtue, both past accumulations as well as preventing future accumulations. So therefore, bodhicitta does not only overwhelm previous accumulations of non-virtue, but due to the presence of bodhicitta, it prevents the mere arisal of afflictions, and thereby one doesn't accumulate further non-virtue. So this here is why bodhicitta is so powerful for purification. In addition, when bodhicitta is present, any virtuous mind that is, or rather every virtuous mind that is generated, conjoined with bodhicitta, is so much more powerful than it otherwise would be. So therefore, a virtuous deed, conjoined with bodhicitta, is of immeasurable more strength and value than the same virtuous deed without being conjoined to bodhicitta. As I mentioned earlier, here we come in this 3-line verse to the presentation, or the start of the presentation on the benefits of bodhicitta. So we see first in relation to overcoming misdeeds, as well as not just average run-of-the-mill non-virtuous imprints on our continuum, but even those of incredible power, those that would lead to horrendous ripening results. Bodhicitta overwhelms them, overcomes them. First benefit. Second benefit is that with bodhicitta present, afflictions are suppressed. They cannot ripen, which means one will not accumulate further non-virtue. One will not accumulate non-virtue newly. So past misdeeds are overwhelmed, and new non-virtue is blocked. That's the second benefit. And then the third is that with the conjoined with any virtuous mind conjoined with bodhicitta is of immeasurable more strength. And therefore, that same virtuous mind, because it is now conjoined with bodhicitta, leads to the accumulation of far more merit than otherwise, incomparably more merit than otherwise. So these then are 3 key benefits that are ascribed to bodhicitta. On our continuum, we have this wide array of imprints, many of which have are of sufficient strength that if they ripen at the time of death, can propel us to be reborn as an animal or as a spirit or even in the hell realms. But bodhicitta can bring an end to the possibility of such a rebirth. So despite having uncountable imprints that can realistically lead to our rebirth in the lower realms, bodhicitta can bring an end to such a rebirth, close the door to such a possibility. The benefits of bodhicitta are being presented here so that we can hear them, commit them to memory, and reflect on them again and again in order to generate the determination, I must generate bodhicitta. And why must I generate bodhicitta? Because I know on my continuum are imprints accumulated in this and past lives that if allowed to fester there, to grow in strength perhaps, if they ripen at the time of death, I will be born in the suffering lower realms. I don't want to suffer. Bodhicitta will will overwhelm, will dominate past negative imprints and prevent them from ripening into further suffering experiences. So therefore, the generation of bodhicitta will prevent me from suffering, as well as closing the door to rebirth in the lower realms. Moreover, it will prevent the arisal of the afflictions, suppress the afflictions. Therefore, I won't be tormented by the afflictions. And thereby, it will prevent the accumulation of further non-virtue. So here are a wide array of benefits on the side of our non-virtue. It overwhelms and prevents the ripening of past misdeeds, and therefore prevents us from suffering, closes the door to the lower realms, overwhelms our afflictions so they don't ripen, and therefore we don't suffer now, and therefore we don't accumulate further causes for suffering in the future, further non-virtue. All of that is overcome by the generation of bodhicitta, as well as the accumulation of immeasurable stores of virtue. If you recall times in your life when you were obsessed with getting something, the reason for that is you had come to really value something. I have to have it. If I have that, my life will be transformed. And you will make sacrifices to ensure that you obtain it. So that is the same technique that we need to apply here. Reflecting repeatedly over a sustained period on the benefits of cultivating bodhicitta will lead to the generation of bodhicitta in our own continuum in this very life, being our life's mission. This will be our foremost objective. And very quickly then, through reflecting on the benefits of bodhicitta again and again and again, we will ensure that everything we say, do, or think is geared towards cultivating the causes so that we can become counted amongst the bodhisattvas. This is the purpose of coming to hear and then reflect again and again on the benefits of bodhicitta. So what's required of all of us here is to reflect, contemplate again and again on the benefits of bodhicitta. Learn them, and not merely recite them as a list, but think, is this really the case? If I were to generate bodhicitta, what would my life be like? What impact would the presence of bodhicitta have on me? What would it like to have my virtuous minds conjoined with bodhicitta? What would it be like to have my afflictions suppressed because I've generated bodhicitta? In this way, reflecting on the benefits, one will give rise to the wish to generate bodhicitta. If you think about it, if one is a bodhisattva, has the wish to become a Buddha so as to be the most skilled of guides, to be able to lead beings from the suffering realms that they find themselves trapped in now to a state of lasting happiness. If that is one's guiding light, one will have a strength of mind. Problems will never overwhelm one. One will rather see them or approach them as opportunities to benefit. Moreover, one will seek out opportunities where one can directly engage with others, ease their suffering. And of course, any thought to bring harm to others, any spontaneous response of aggression or deceit just could not arise because of the power of bodhicitta, our determination to become a Buddha for the sake of others. Reflecting on this again and again will have a transformative impact on one, because where there is something that we truly value, that we hold dear to us, something that we are determined to attain, we will strive single-pointedly. No obstacle will be able to push us away from achieving our goal. And this is what we need to do here. Give rise to a genuine determination to be counted amongst the Buddha's children, to become a bodhisattva, and to be a being of great benefit in this world. The way that we all need to train here is to do the reflections as I briefly mentioned, recalling the benefits, seeing how it would be to have them in one's mind, generate this determination to become a bodhisattva oneself. And then, so this I've already mentioned, and now just to add, then express this aspiration, turn to one's spiritual teachers, the Buddhas, and make the request, bless me, guide me, so that all obstacles I encounter, I deal with them skillfully, that I deal with them in the same way that Shantideva would deal with them, that I develop a mind that's as pure and virtuous as he generated. And may I, through the influence of this mind, actually become a bodhisattva in this very life. So this is the way to cultivate bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, what it does not do is eliminate the seeds and the imprints or the seeds and the stains of the afflictions. What it does do, though, is overcome and surpass it. Or to use other synonyms, bodhicitta outshines all other virtues and overcomes all non-virtue. So this is the meaning of overcoming and surpassing. Surpasses all other good qualities within the accumulation of merit, and overcomes the non-virtue, the afflictions on our continuum. What it doesn't do is destroy the seeds and stains or imprints of the afflictions, but it does prevent their arisal or dominance within us. So this then is the meaning of overcoming and surpassing all other virtuous minds within the accumulation of merit, as well as overcoming the afflictions on our continuum. So understand then how bodhicitta overcomes a non-virtue on our continuum is if we imagine ourselves seated next to a very large chunk of ice. So if you're sitting right next to a large chunk of ice, that's going to be pretty cold on us. But if the sun is shining down and it's actually a lovely warm day, we may get a little wet from the melting ice, but we're not going to be cold because we'll be warmed by the sunlight. So therefore, what we see is the sunlight prevents this block of ice from harming us. So in a similar manner, bodhicitta on our continuum, whilst it doesn't cut the afflictions at their root, that doesn't destroy the seeds and the stains of the afflictions, it does overcome the potency of the non-virtue on our continuum, the potential that it would otherwise have to harm us, to ripen and harm us. That potential, that is overcome by bodhicitta. The 7th verse. Having reflected deeply for many eons, the mighty Buddhas have seen this alone to be of benefit, for through it immeasurable masses of beings will with ease attain the happiness of supreme bliss. First line, having reflected deeply for many eons. So this shows how Buddhas would have reflected again and again, how can I benefit beings? So this is the concern of Buddhas. How can beings be benefited? They would have reflected on this, or Buddhas do reflect on this continuously. So we see several adjectives here, many eons. So this is to show age upon age upon age, Buddhas have been reflecting, how can I alleviate the suffering of beings? How can I be of benefit to beings? And not only have they been reflecting in this way over an extensive period, but these thoughts haven't been just occasional, but they have been deep, thinking in deeply, how can we benefit beings? How can we alleviate the suffering of beings? When the Buddhas are thinking, how can we eliminate the suffering of beings? How can we guide them so that they attain lasting happiness? Well, if they think of engaging in the usual expressions to help others, such as giving food to the hungry, clothing to those who need it, giving medicine to those who are ill, well, these will all help and should be done, but none of them will lead to the attainment of lasting happiness. For lasting happiness to be attained, the Buddhas know they need to guide beings to cultivate the causes that will lead to lasting happiness. Causes such as generating a generous outlook, generating a mind of ethical restraint, a mind of patience. These are the causes for happiness. And accompanying this, the causes that will lead to suffering, contaminated karma and afflictions, these need to be eliminated. And how so? Beings need to be guided in how to cultivate the wisdom that realizes emptiness. And it's through these two approaches beings can be guided to develop their own minds to attain a state of lasting happiness, a state that is never punctuated by even a moment of pain or misery. So therefore, the Buddhas know that to help beings, they need to guide them to cultivate the causes for happiness, cultivate the mind such as generosity, ethics, patience, and so forth, as well as cultivate the cause that will lead to the eradication of suffering completely, the wisdom realizing emptiness. These two together will guide beings to attain the state themselves of lasting, stable happiness. The objective of the holy beings is to guide beings to the state of lasting happiness, where they can help them with attain temporary happiness. This is well and good. But their real desire is to guide beings to attain a state of lasting, stable happiness, a happiness that's never punctuated by even a moment of suffering. Therefore, the focus of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is to guide beings to attain their own enlightenment. But in order to be able to guide a being to enlightenment, a practitioner has to be developed themselves. Merely studying well and knowing in theory, even if in great detail, is insufficient. The theory needs to be put into have been put into practice and cultivated to the points of realization within one's own continuum. Then one can guide others based on one's own experience, not merely based on theory. And this is imperative because in order to transform one's mind completely, beings will encounter many obstacles, have many challenges. Where their guide has experience of overcoming those challenges, they can skillfully guide their student to overcome them themselves. Whereas if the knowledge is merely theoretical, their guide can give an educated guess. That's all. So therefore, to really be able to help beings, the practitioner has to have transformed their mind already. And to the extent that their mind is transformed, they can guide beings ever more precisely in accordance with their own personalities, their own individual karmic predispositions. And thereby, as beings encounter their own a variety of obstacles and hindrances, their guide can skillfully help them work around those obstacles and overcome them. And the guide that can do that best, even better than the great Bodhisattvas, are the Buddhas. This desire to become a Buddha so as to benefit others is what needs to be cultivated within, so that one can sincerely strive to become the best of guides and have the greatest impact on others. So therefore it becomes known to one that it's indispensable to become a Buddha, because it's only by becoming a Buddha that one can help all beings without exception. And how to do so? One generates bodhicitta. Because when bodhicitta is generated, then all one's virtuous activities, for example, ethical restraint, when conjoined with bodhicitta, becomes a cause to become a Buddha. Without bodhicitta, the same mind of ethics will only become a cause for one's own individual liberation, to become an arhat. But conjoined with bodhicitta, that same mind of ethics becomes a cause to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Looking at the first two lines, having reflected deeply for many aeons, the mighty Buddhas have seen this alone to be of benefit. The Buddhas then, having reflected deeply over a great expanse of time, have seen that it is bodhicitta that beings need to generate. Because through the Buddhas guiding sentient beings to cultivate bodhicitta in their own continuum, there is incredible benefit to those beings when they become bodhisattvas as well. Through the generation of bodhicitta, sentient beings, as we heard before, their afflictions will be suppressed. They will not be accumulating further non-virtue, so they are not suffering now, nor will they in the future. Moreover, their accumulation of virtue is intense. Therefore, they will make rapid spiritual progress. So therefore, the mighty Buddhas have seen that this alone, in other words, bodhicitta, is what sentient beings need to cultivate, and it will benefit them both in the short term as well as ultimately in the long term with the attainment of enlightenment. Therefore, the very root or basis that Buddhas need to guide sentient beings to develop is bodhicitta. For through it, immeasurable masses of beings will with ease attain the happiness of supreme bliss. The Buddhas, having reflected deeply and have come to see that bodhicitta alone is what will aid sentient beings both in the immediate term as well as ultimately by leading them to attain their own enlightenment. This is what they focus on, guiding sentient beings to cultivate it. Because, third and fourth line, for through it, through bodhicitta, immeasurable masses of beings, so beings beyond counting, will with ease and quickly attain the happiness of Buddhahood. So in other words, Buddhas know that the very best way they can help beings is to guide them to develop bodhicitta themselves, because they will then quickly and easily attain their own enlightenment, the state of greatest bliss, supreme bliss. The reason then that Buddhas recognize that the very, very best way they can benefit beings is to guide them to cultivate bodhicitta, And the reason why bodhicitta is best is because when bodhicitta has been generated, those sentient beings will quickly and easily attain their own enlightenment. To understand that this term in the fourth line, with ease, with bodhicitta generated, all virtuous minds will easily and quickly lead to the attainment of Buddhahood. If bodhicitta is absent, those virtuous minds will take so much longer to lead to the attainment of enlightenment, because the practitioner will have to go via the route of individual liberation. So with bodhicitta generated, then minds such as ethical restraint, wisdom realizing emptiness, these become the causes for enlightenment, for Buddhahood itself. Whereas if bodhicitta is absent, those same trainings do not become causes for enlightenment. And therefore, the attainment of enlightenment is greatly delayed. But with bodhicitta present, it will be quickly and easily attained. And summarized in the 7th verse, the Buddhas have come to recognize that to benefit sentient beings, the very best thing they can do is to guide them to generate bodhicitta themselves. Because when the suffering sentient being they are guiding, they are successful in guiding them to generate bodhicitta, their own happiness is ensured, as well, of course, their own freedom from suffering. But not only that, so too for countless other beings, immeasurable masses of beings. So in this way, the Buddhas will help this suffering being through the generation of bodhicitta in their continuum, as well as via them, countless masses of beings as well. Whereas, if a being is benefited, but bodhicitta is not generated, so minds such as ethical restraint and wisdom realizing emptiness and so forth are generated, that individual being will benefit. Through them, some others will certainly be benefited, but not immeasurable masses of beings. So therefore, to help each being on a temporary basis, as well as an ultimate basis, a long-term basis, the generation of bodhicitta is the very best method to be of benefit to others. This is what the Buddhas have come to recognize. Summarized in both verses, we've looked tonight then at benefits of bodhicitta. So I encourage you to reflect on these again and again and again. Keep these present in your mind, not just in seated meditation, but at all times, so as to generate a deep and sincere determination that this is the life. This is the life. I will become a bodhisattva. I can develop bodhicitta. It is not beyond me. I have a precious human rebirth. And I can, in this way, attain the state of lasting happiness, but not only for myself, I can guide all others as well. I must become a bodhisattva. I must develop bodhicitta for all the reasons laid out in these 2 verses. The advice from Shantideva here to all of us is, you, just like each and every sentient being, want to experience happiness, wants to be freed of pain and misery. Recognize this truth. Generate then the wish. May all sentient beings, myself and others, abide in lasting happiness. That's the mind of love. May myself and all sentient beings be freed of pain and suffering. Generate in this way compassion. And then remind ourselves of how truly fortunate we are to have not just merely attained a human rebirth, but a precious human rebirth. And we have met the Dharma, and amongst all forms of the Dharma, the supreme Mahayana Dharma. How truly fortunate we are. And this incredible opportunity, I will not let it go to waste. Whatever period of time I still have left in this life, I'll put it to best use. I will not let it go to waste. I will use this opportunity to benefit beings. And as I've seen here, the very best way I can benefit others is to generate bodhicitta. How wonderful it would be if all beings were bodhisattvas. All those that I can call to mind, and even those that I cannot. How wonderful it would be if they were bodhisattvas. For all beings to become so, I must generate bodhicitta myself. I will do so. I've seen all the benefits of bodhicitta. I've reminded myself of these benefits of bodhicitta. I will generate bodhicitta in this very life. This is advice from Shantideva. This is our spiritual instruction, to train our mind in this way. So thank you very much. We can finish there for this week. If you have any questions, then please feel free to ask. At the back. So can Kena explain the jewel that Chenrezig holds? That I've heard it's a wish-fulfilling jewel, a jewel that helps with bodhicitta. So can Kena just explain that? So the jewel that Chenrezig holds symbolizes bodhicitta. So why is a jewel utilized as a symbol of bodhicitta? So just like jewels in society are of great value, and therefore if one were to have jewels, one could alleviate much common suffering. So too, the jewel of bodhicitta. With such a jewel, one can alleviate all sufferings of all beings. So therefore, the jewel that Chenrezig holds symbolizes bodhicitta, that through it, the suffering of all beings can be eliminated.